All right, so I wanted to talk about differences between male and female bees. So I've shown the characteristics here, and I start with the ones that are most easy to see when you're out looking for them. So activity-wise, generally females are going to be more active and more noticeable because they're going to be on flowers gathering pollen to bring back for the next generation of bees, whether they're a solitary bee or they're contributing to the hive or the colony if they're a eusocial species, but they're going to be active, getting pollen all over their body, carrying it on their corbicula or on their scopa, different parts of their body, to carry that pollen back. Whereas males, depends on the species, but many species, they're going to be active for a brief period, maybe early spring, just to mate essentially, and then live for a few weeks, or maybe late fall. Again, it depends on the species and the location. But you're not going to see them as much either because while they will go to flowers for nectar and perhaps some pollen, they're not generally going back and providing that to the next generation of bees. They're really just out to mate and to live for a short period of time. So pollen on the body, I've already kind of mentioned that the females will have pollen all over their body, or especially on their corbicula and their scopa if they are that kind of bee. But for males, they may have a little bit, but mostly it's going to be incidental. It's just going to get on them as they're looking for nectar and such. And then facial markings, some species, the females will have a little bit of yellow or white on the face, but the males will have much more. So you will see that in the mast bees in the genus Hylaeus, for example, and then a number of other species the males will have a little more yellow or sort of a whitish off-white color on the face and the legs. Antennal segments, few people are going to be able to actually count the antennae on bees they see in the wild, but females have 12 and males have 13, so that is another difference I wanted to mention. And finally, there's a little bit of a difference in the abdomen if you're comparing the same species. The females will have an abdomen that is a little more oval and rounded, whereas the males, it'll be thinner and maybe a little bit tapered. But again, that's tricky because it really depends on the species, and you would have to compare the male and female of the same species. And finally, some people don't know this, but it's only the females that have a stinger. So if you get stung by a bee, it's a female. And if you can hold a bee, in most cases, like a male carpenter bee, you can hold them and they cannot sting you because they don't have a stinger. And just to show you what that looks like, the stinger is actually a modified ovipositor or egg-laying structure. So it's tied in. When you look at the anatomy of a bee, you'll see the ovary, and then there's poison sacs nearby and poison glands nearby, and then there's the stinger located there. So it's a really kind of a cool adaptation, only present in females, and also reduce their functionless in some bees. So you have bees that people call stingless bees, and you have bees that have stingers, but they can't really pierce like mammalian skin or larger animals. It's really kind of essentially not going to work for stinging those larger organisms, even though it still exists.